Us humans have long been captivated by stories that send shivers down our spines. Stories that explore the darkest corners of the human psyche. The true crime genre, a category that brings real crime stories to the forefront, has been a part of this tradition, evolving significantly over centuries to cater to this innate human curiosity. From the early whispers of heinous crimes in town squares to the digital platforms that allow for a deep investigation into the intricacies of criminal cases, true crime has been a constant presence, albeit in evolving forms. It seems like everywhere we look these days, there's a true crime documentary or podcast or YouTube video. So how did we get here? Have we as a society been so greatly affected by the changes in the world that our interests have taken a darker turn? Or has true crime always been a source of entertainment for people? I found that the answer to that question is sort of tricky, however, the answer is that true crime has been a form of entertainment since the 16th and 17th century. The true crime genre found its initial footing through the dissemination of crime pamphlets, broadsheets, and ballads. These early forms of media served as both a source of news and a form of entertainment, offering the public details about sensational crimes, trials, and executions that were occurring in their locales and even further afield. As I mentioned, broadsheets were one of these forms of media, and they were often accompanied by illustrations that depicted the crime or the criminal, adding a visual element that brought these stories to light and added some excitement. These were typically single-sheet publications, which made them more accessible and shareable, fostering a communal experience of crime storytelling, where people would gather to hear the latest tales of deceit, murder, and criminal exploits. Broadsheets circulated the details about the gunpowder plot of 1605, which was a failed assassination attempt against King James I of England and the Parliament. Along with details about the plot, the broadsheet named the individuals involved, including Guy Fawkes, who became the face of the conspiracy. Broadsheets contributed to the development of modern newspapers and journalistic practices. The term broadsheet is still used today to describe a certain format of newspaper, generally associated with high-quality journalism, in contrast to the more sensationalist style of tabloids. Moreover, the true crime stories and sensational reports in historical broadsheets influenced literary genres, notably the Gothic novel and later detective fiction. Crime pamphlets were another form of media in the 16th and 17th century. These had detailed written accounts of criminal cases, providing not only the facts of the case, but also delving into the psychological aspects of the criminals and their victims. These pamphlets were widely circulated, and they catered to the public's growing curiosity about the criminal underworld. The crimes of Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian noblewoman, who was accused of murdering young girls in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, was documented extensively at the time. These pamphlets played a significant role in shaping her legacy as one of history's most notorious female serial killers. I actually have a series I've been doing discussing the inspirations behind each season of American Horror Story, and Elizabeth Bathory was probably the biggest inspiration for the hotel season if you want to check out that video. All of the seasons have really fascinating inspiration behind all of them, but Hotel, I don't know, man, there was something about that season that was just incredibly interesting when it came to the inspiration. As usual, I'm getting off topic. Back to the pamphlets. The Newgate Calendar was a series of 18th century publications detailing the crimes, trials, and executions of prisoners at Newgate Prison in London. While the Newgate Calendar was popular, it also faced criticism for glorifying criminals, sensationalism, and for its inaccuracies. Critics argued that it presented a skewed view of criminality and justice, focusing more on entertainment than on factual reporting. Today, the Newgate Calendar is viewed as a valuable historical document, offering insight into 18th and 19th British society, its legal system, cultural norms, and attitude towards crime and punishment. Crime ballads were perhaps the most creative expression of true crime narratives during this period. These were songs that narrated criminal stories, often performed in public places, bringing a sense of drama and performance to the recounting of true crime tales. Probably the most wild of them all was the public execution. I always think of Quasimodo and Ned Stark when I think of public execution, although Quasi was more of a public shaming now that I'm recalling correctly. You know, it was like the original tomato, tomato, tomato. Quasimodo, the hero of our time. And can you believe they are making a live-action Hunchback of Notre Dame? This is how I know Disney has lost the entire fucking plot. What are you talking about? Wasn't it traumatic enough for us, mostly children, to watch Claude Froyo sing Hellfire? Do they not remember what those lyrics were? They are burned in my brain, and I think back and I'm like, who okayed that? Who greenlit that? Let's just leave some of these Disney beloved classics in the past and just leave them there and move on and make like original films. We do not need Esmeralda, Disney's version of Esmeralda, in the 2020s. I promise you that. Not a great idea. Anyways, to my surprise, public executions were quite common, and they became a form of macabre entertainment, to say the very least. People would gather in large numbers to witness this event. And that was not the end of the show. The stories of the execution, the crime, the criminal would circulate widely via word of mouth, adding a layer of narrative depth to true crime stories at that time. One of the primary reasons for public executions was to deter others from committing similar crimes by demonstrating the severe consequences of breaking the law. They reinforced the power of the state or ruling authority, showcasing their ability to enforce laws and maintain social order. Despite their grim nature, executions were also a form of public spectacle. Many public executions were accompanied by a carnival-like atmosphere. Yes, I did indeed say carnival. There were vendors that sold drinks and food and souvenirs, and there were also entertainers that took full advantage of the large crowds and decided what an opportunity to perform. Human fascination with death and the macabre played a significant role in the appeal of public executions. These events provided a legal and socially sanctioned way for individuals to confront death and violence, which of course satisfied this morbid curiosity, while also reinforcing the moral boundaries of society. Ironic, I know. But I also think it's important to recognize that in the eras that were before the widespread availability of books, movies, television, the internet, before all that fun, public executions were one of the only forms of public entertainment. So the pickings were slim and the people were just bored in the house, bored. The dramatic nature of these events combined with their rarity made public executions pretty lit. In the 16th and 17th century, the true crime stories that circulated had a substantial role in shaping how society viewed crime and justice. These stories were a bit like the true crime shows we binge watch today. They drew people in with thrilling narratives, but also carried underlying messages about right and wrong. Townsfolk would gather around while someone would read out the latest crime pamphlet, or would sing a ballad narrating the most recent crime. These gatherings were more than just sharing a sensational story. They were a space for people to discuss and debate the events, much like how we share and discuss news on social media today. People would dissect the details of the crime, argue about the fairness of the punishment, and share their own views on the moral lessons drawn from the story. It was a time when stories went viral via word of mouth. During the 18th and 19th centuries, a lot stayed the same when it came to how how true crime was shared with the public. Ballads, broadsheets, pamphlets, and public executions were still very popular. However, there was quite an evolution, specifically when it came to new mediums and narrative styles to captivate audiences. During this time, the literary domain became a significant avenue for true crime narratives. Alongside novels and short stories, serialized stories in newspapers and periodicals became a popular trend. For example, in the 19th century, penny dreadfuls became a popular form of entertainment in the UK. These were cheap, sensational, serialized stories that often featured criminal characters and lurid tales of crime and violence. They were accessible to the working class because of their low price, and they often dramatized real criminal cases, adding a layer of excitement and horror to these events. Theater also became a vibrant platform to share true crime stories at this time. Playwrights and producers turned to recent sensational criminal cases, adding a rich source of material for their productions. These plays often went beyond mere recounting of facts. Of course, they dramatized the events, but they also added fictional elements and focused more on the human stories behind the crimes. An example from this period is the theatrical adaptations of the Red Barn murder, a notorious case from 1827 in England. The case revolved around the murder of Maria Martin by William Corder, with the body being discovered buried in the Red Barn after Maria's stepmother claimed to have dreamt of the location of the body. The case quickly caught the public's imagination, and within weeks of Corder's arrest, plays depicting the events were being performed in theaters across the country. Perhaps one of the biggest advancements in true crime and science in general was the advent of forensic science in the late 19th century. As we transitioned into the 20th century, we witnessed a transformative period in the true crime genre, characterized by the advent of radio and television. In the early decades of the 20th century, the true crime genre found a home in radio broadcasts. Programs such as Gangbusters, which aired in the mid-1930s, used sound effects and dramatic narratives to recreate true crime stories. The radio era, in my opinion, is the most significant shift in the true crime genre. That transition from written narratives to auditory experiences was huge. And yes, with plays, obviously, you could have an auditory and a visual experience. The radio was far more intimate, creating a communal experience of crime storytelling, where families would gather around the radio to listen to the latest episodes. As the century progressed, television became the dominant medium. The 1950s and 60s saw the emergence of shows like Dragnet, which prided itself on factual accuracy while dramatizing real police cases. Later in the 1980s and 90s, shows like America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries gauged the audience in real-time criminal investigations, encouraging viewers to actively participate by providing tips and information. This period also saw the rise of investigative journalism, with shows offering deep insights into criminal cases, exploring the psychological depths of the criminal, and providing a platform for victims to share their own stories. And then there was Nancy Grace. That's it. That's the entire subsection. Radio, TV, Nancy Grace.
Well,
Dead because he killed her. Yeah, he knew she was dead, all right, and I'll tell you how he knew, because he put the bullet in her.
There's just a lot on the table right now. Don't go biting off your manicure.
All right,
but
excuse
me.
Just
that simple.
I am a working mother of 5-year-old twins. I've been camped out at this courthouse since before daylight today. I don't have time for a manicure, so don't stereotype women now or ever. She said the baby had got put in the oven.
Right.
By what? By who? Who? A little green man from Mars? Unleash the lawyers.
Unleash the lawyers.
Unleash the lawyers.
I'm having a little crow sandwich on the set tonight, and it's not going to taste good. Looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. Whoa, please cut her mic. Cut his mic.
It's
Rot in hell. And hey, if you're listening, you can put that on your Christmas tree. Fast backwards, my man.
Okay.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. That's putting perfume on the pig. Putting perfume on the pig. Why don't you just pull out your Ouija board, Taffy, and tell me what's going to happen? Because you're not telling me where you're getting this zany 5-to-1 thing. I think you've got a Ouija board down your pants. You're going to pull that out.
And here we saw another significant evolution with the advent of documentaries and docuseries that did a deep dive into criminal cases, giving viewers even more insight into the world of crime and justice. The Thin Blue Line, directed by Errol Morris, is often hailed as one of the pioneering true crime documentaries. It investigated the conviction of Randall Dale Adams for a police officer's murder, presenting an alternate perspective that suggested Adams was innocent. The documentary played a pivotal role in Adams' eventual release, showcasing the potential of documentaries to affect real-world change. The Paradise Lost trilogy were a series of documentaries by Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky that spanned over 15 years. The series chronicled the arrest, trial, and imprisonment of the West Memphis Three, accused of murdering 3 young boys in Arkansas. A quick side note, if you're saying to yourself, I would really like to watch that Paradise Lost trilogy, that sounds interesting, you are absolutely correct. It was fascinating. However, I think that was one of the most disturbing documentaries I've ever watched. If you are not in a healthy headspace, don't watch it. To give you an idea, the opening shot full on shows the bodies of these dead little boys. There is no blurring, it is raw, it feels very unfiltered, and the story itself is absolutely devastating. I just wanted to throw that out there. Alongside documentaries, there were the docu-series, which were very hot at this time. Now that I'm thinking about it, docu-series feel a lot like a modern spin on Penny Dreadfuls. One of the early true crime series that gained a substantial following was Cold Case Files. The show, narrated by Bill Curtis, revisited unsolved criminal cases, presenting detailed investigations, and sometimes succeeding in shedding new light on cold cases. Another series, and one of my personal favorites, Forensic Files, stood out for its focus on the scientific approach to solving crimes. Each episode showcased how forensic science helps in solving criminal cases. The buzz around these documentaries and docuseries that gained worldwide attention fostered a community of die-hard true crime enthusiasts. As we moved into the digital age, we saw the rise of the podcast, and they have burgeoned as the central hub of true crime narratives, from serious investigative journalism to a more playful conversational style. Sarah Koenig's Serial, initiated in 2014, stands as a pillar in this landscape, bringing a meticulous journalistic approach to dissecting these cases. And this set a precedent for deep dive investigations in the podcast space. Criminal, hosted by Phoebe Judge in 2014. Then there's My Favorite Murder, which adds a different flavor to the genre for sure. Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark launched this podcast in 2016 and introduced a lighter, more conversational approach, blending humor with crime narratives. And of course, right alongside podcasts is YouTube. YouTube has fostered a dynamic ecosystem for true crime enthusiasts. TikTokers have also jumped into the true crime mix as well and have a bit of a different vibe. TikTok is obviously an app that caters to short attention spans, so the content is different stylistically, but the bones are the same for sure. I want to add that yes, this true crime genre is and was very successful, but it has faced criticism, with some arguing that it can be incredibly disrespectful to the victims and their families, especially when the narrative leans more towards a playful or sensationalized tone. This has sparked discussions about the ethical responsibility of creators when it comes to handling such sensitive topics. There is a fine line between entertainment and maintaining respect for the gravity of the subjects covered, and that can be very difficult for people to navigate. The reasons why someone may not be a fan of true crime, I feel like is very obvious. It can be gory, disturbing, disrespectful, and insensitive regardless of tone. Even though that's not how I personally feel, I love the true crime genre. I do prefer more of a serious tone when discussing the subjects, but as I was saying, I completely understand why it is a hard pass for some people. I'm more curious about those who enjoy the true crime genre, or rather the why. It's not something we consume because we're monsters and we're messed up in the head. So why is it that we find entertainment in something so dark? Several theories and studies have been proposed to understand the psychological reasons behind its widespread appeal. One perspective revolves around the concept of catharsis. It suggests that engaging with dark, disturbing content in a controlled environment allows individuals to confront their deepest fears and anxieties safely. Through this lens, the true crime genre offers a space where individuals can navigate the complexities of fear, pity, and other intense emotions, experiencing a purging or cleansing of these feelings. Another angle to approach this fascination is the deep psychological curiosity that humans harbor toward the darker aspects of the human psyche. True crime narratives offer a window into the minds of individuals who commit heinous acts from a safe distance. A more evolutionary perspective is presented in a study conducted by Amanda M. Vickery and R. Chris Fraley, published in the Social, Psychological, and Personality Science Journal in 2010. Their research proposed that the interest in true crime could be linked to a primal survival instinct. Individuals might subconsciously gather information to help avoid becoming a victim in the future, thus catering to that deep-seated instinct to protect oneself and survive. Furthermore, the genre often offers narratives where justice is sought for the victims, providing a sense of moral satisfaction to the consumers. And truly, on a very basic level, the true crime genre offers really great storytelling. It often involves complex narratives rich with intricate details, unexpected twists, and deep character studies. The true crime genre operates at a very unique intersection of fear, curiosity, and a strong desire for justice. It taps into the primal instincts of survival, offering a space where individuals can navigate the dark corners of the human psyche while remaining in the safe confines of their own space. It's clear that our journey with true crime is far from over. From ballads to podcasts, public executions to a 10-part TikTok series, prime time on the BoobTube to crime time on YouTube. The true crime genre is one that will continue to captivate, educate, and intrigue for generations to come.
Somehow using his cell phone at 1:48 in the morning. Why is that
look for porn, Dan. Porn.
Well, okay. If it, whatever it was for, though, he was claiming that they were asleep in bed at 10 p.m. that night.
And Nancy, we thank you both.
I noticed neither of you want to touch it with a 10-foot pole that he was trolling the internet for porn just before he kills her. But I'll say that for another day.
Actually, Nancy, we just have to get to the weather.
I have not eaten. I have not taken my medicine. I've only had the biggest fucking cup of tea, the biggest fucking caffeine count. This is the way to live.
Certified free, 7 days a week.